Hello everybody, welcome to a knife review by J-Dub Knives. I'm doing something a little different in this video, and I think I'm going to continue doing it. I'm filming outside. I think that gives me good lighting, and even though you might hear children playing because I have a playground kind of near my house, I think it's just going to be a better video experience than whenever I used to do it in my room. So let's get started talking about the knife. The Southard Avo. I have owned this knife for a couple months now, and I have had this knife apart, and I feel like now I have enough information to give a good review and to go really in depth in talking about this guy. Let's start by talking materials. This knife features CTS steel B75P, which is basically it's a similar steel to BG42. In fact, it's identical in its composition and what materials are put into this steel. Personally, I'm really liking it. It's a high quality steel. I think it was the first steel that Chris Reeve used in his Sabenzas before he switched to S35VN. I'm going to tell you right now, it takes a crazy edge. If you guys really sharpen your knives, you'll know that some steels take better edges than others. For instance, S30V, it'll take an okay edge. Alright, like, it'll be sharp. Trust me, I can get this thing sharp. But, there's a level where whenever you feel this edge and you're like, man, that's sharp, you'll feel this edge and you go, man, that's even sharper. Like, you can just tell. And I put these through the same processes. I sharpened them the exact same ways. So, it's not whenever I sharpen this one, I put more thought into it. If anything, I put more thought into this one since it's a customer knife. But just this steel is capable of taking just a crazy stupid edge. Alright, it's very rust resistant. In my experience, I have never had any problems with it. I've never put oil on it, and I don't feel like I've needed to. I've gotten it wet, put it right back in my pocket, pulled it out, and it's been fine. Other Avo owners that I've talked to on Facebook say that their Avos have held an edge great, and they've had a great experience with BG42. And most of the people I talk to that own a Southard Avo have said that that's their favorite steel. So I think that really is a big testament to this steel, because a lot of those guys, they own a ton of knives, and whenever BG42, is their favorite, that means something to me. Handle material, standard knife titanium, 6AL4V titanium. This one has been anodized. I got this secondhand, and I don't remember who he said anodized it for him. But it's anodized blue. I really like that. Blue is my favorite color, and it came with this awesome lanyard that has a blue titanium bead. I think that's titanium. Yeah. Anyway, it does not have a stainless steel interface. It's not a problem for me. It has just the slightest amount of lock stick, but it's like you just feel it. Like, you move it over and you just kind of feel it. It's not like it's like a Sabenzas lock stick. It's not like an annoying lock stick that makes it difficult to disengage. It doesn't really affect the disengagement for me at all. And I like it a little bit because it gives a little bit more security that it's going to be solid. The pivot system, the materials used in there, has a stainless steel race of bearings. I've taken a lot of bearing knives apart, and I've looked at and held several different types of bearings, Benchmade's bearings, KVT, which is just a second, Kershaw and Kai ZT's bearings, and Spyderco's and my Spyderco Southard, and these are the best bearings that I've ever held. They're very free. just you can tell whenever you have them in your hand, the quality is outstanding on them. It also has a ceramic detent, which is a premium. That's a premium item on a knife, or premium characteristic. It doesn't have ceramic bearings though. I know that there's ceramic IKBS, which Todd Begg uses in most of his models, the Bodega and the Glimpse 5.5. But also I think the Steelcraft Beggs have those also. But I don't find these bearings lacking in speed. I think they're just right. Alright. So let's talk about construction. This knife has 3 points of contact that are keeping the knife together: the pivot and these 2 standoffs. They all are kind of put together the same way, meaning that there's a screw on both sides that goes into a barrel, and that's what holds the knife together. Of course, the pivot is shouldered because, the pivot has to go from one titanium scale to the other. The standoffs, however, are not shouldered, and that's a little disappointing to me. I feel like at this price range, there should be these knives, or these screws should go into a barrel, and then there should be a sleeve that goes over that barrel, much like an XM18. Although they look the same, when you look at their standoffs, they look similar. If you take the hourglass pillar that you look at, or the hourglass standoff that you look at, if you just take that piece off, the knife still has integrity, because there's still a sleeve you can see right here, the end of the sleeve, that this screw goes into. So it's kind of a 3-part standoff system. This is only 2 parts. The Sebenza is also like that. It is a 3-part system where these screws go into a barrel, and that barrel has a sleeve. And that's kind of, at the price point, I kind of would want to see that. And on top of that, the standoffs are not shouldered, which means that over time you could have problems with the handle slabs moving around a little bit. Maybe I'm just being very nitpicky, but for me, I would like to see them shouldered and have a sleeve around them. And I'm calling them sleeves. That's lack of a better term. There may be a better term out there. I may be using the completely wrong term, but I think you know what I mean. So that's construction of this knife. It also has a hinderer stabilizer, and it acts exactly the same as the hinderer stabilizer on the XM18. It prevents you from overextending the lock bar, and it prevents the lock bar from moving in this direction. If you're really gripping the knife, it prevents it from moving backwards. Along with construction, let's talk about the nice milling that they've done on this handle. I guess this would be moving more into fit and finish, so I guess we'll talk about that. He has done a great job with these etchings on the handle. It gives the knife great lines, and it actually makes it more ergonomic whenever you grab it, because you can kind of feel that chamfering and the tapering. And it just looks really great. All of this etching down here in the lock bar cutout. I guess as we talk about fit and finish, we should mention a couple of the downsides of this knife. And I want to mention first, this is Brad Southard's first attempt at a mid-tech. From this point forward, this was his first mid-tech. Other than this, he's done all customs. And so you can see that that this was his first attempt. You can see that kind of. You'll see that as we go through this review, and I'll talk about it a little bit. But before we get to the bad parts, let's talk about this finish on the good things. This flipper has been machined, chamfered, and contoured very well. There's not a sharp corner on it. It feels great as you flip it, and the insides of this titanium has also been chamfered to where after you flip it and your finger comes down, it's it's coming against a very soft surface and a very comfortable surface after you flip it. I say that because the XM18 does not. The XM18, after you flip that, your finger runs right into this very sharp jimping, and that's actually, if you look at my finger, I've had this XM18 for about a month, and you can see what it's done to my finger. And eventually that'll get better. Eventually my finger will completely callous, but that's a feature that you really don't want to see, especially on a $425 knife. Oops. And Brad does not have that problem with this Avo model. Jimping is perfect. To me, I don't really care for jimping, and this is the best type because it gives you some grip. Your finger will slide around on there, but it gives you a good indexing point and just a little something. A little something to keep your finger where you want it to be, or keep your thumb where you want it to be. And it's not overly sharp. So now let's talk about the bad parts of fit and finish. First off, there is up and down play in this knife. Not a terrible amount, and I still own it, which I guess y'all don't know me very well, but if there's a knife that has problems like that, normally I don't keep it. But this one has a little bit of up and down play, and it's forgivable for me. And let me tell you why it has some up and down play. So this was his first attempt at a mid-tech, and the factory that he used a pivot that was too small for the knife, and that results in a little bit of up and down play. There is no side-to-side play in this knife. And the last, I think the last critique I'll have on the whole knife is the centering is just a wee bit off to the right, just a tick. It doesn't even get anything close to rubbing. Sorry, got a little tongue-tied there. So those are really the only two critiques I have on the fit and finish. Lockup, same every time. As you can see, it's got a great detent. I mean, Brad Southard has really perfected the art of flipping and how to make a good flipper. It's just outstanding. So now let's talk about the execution, which I would consider this to be the final stage of my knife reviews. Again, I'm just getting back into the knife review hobby. I have a sharpening business going on, so I'm going to be reviewing, knives like these that come in for sharpening. And I'm going to be reviewing my own knives, and my own knives, the taste has gotten dramatically more expensive than before. I also have a Ferrum Forge Intac on its way, and perhaps a Strider PT as well. Anyway, execution. The knife is very thin behind the edge. It's not super thin stock, but it's nice and thin behind the edge. You can see how thin the secondary bevel is right here at 15 degrees per side. It's just about, maybe a little thicker than this Enduro, which is also 15 degrees per side. And it is definitely thinner than, not very good with my left hand on the pulling knives. Anyway, it's definitely thinner than this XM18, which is 18 degrees per side. That is a downside. Sorry, I got some crud on my blade here. Anyway, you can see the difference in thickness, and this is 18 degrees per side, not 15. So I think that's very well executed. What's not well executed, which will be my fourth, and I guess this would be my final complaint, is how he executed the end of this edge bevel. And it's just nasty. Like, I've seen a lot of people do mods where they make a finger choil out of this that goes to about right there, and that fixes the issue. But basically, the finger choil, or the sharpening, what should be the sharpening notch, is right here, and then it has a blade of, and then it has a run of what's supposed to be unsharpened blade, and then it gets to the portion that's supposed to be sharpened, much like a Cold Steel Recon 1. Those knives have a similar problem. And I don't like it. I mean, it makes it look, the knife look a little bush league back at the edge. I'm probably not going to do the modification because I don't, you know, it's not a breaking point for me. None of these things that I'm talking about are breaking points. And maybe talking about the pillars, that's nitpicking, but I think centering should be correct and lock up, but I understand why it's not, because this is his first mid-tech and he's trying to figure out what factories that he's outsourcing to he can trust and which ones do a good job, and I think he fixed that with the Southard Tolk, which I plan to get my hands on. But back to the blade, you know, that also may be that may be his fault, that may be the factory he outsourced to, but it's just something you need to be aware of whenever you purchase this knife. The finishing is great. I love this heavy stonewash, very reminiscent of the Hinder stonewash. It's heavier than the stonewash you'd get on the Sebenza. Continuing on with the execution, the handle fits perfectly in your hand. You can't really grip this knife bad. No matter which way you want to grab it, it's going to be comfortable. And I've already talked about the flipping action. So that's about it, guys. That's my review and take on the Southard Avo. If you are looking at one and you have the chance to buy one, I think you should. These are very rare, and you know, from what I've seen, you'll see them pop up eventually, but I think these were only available to the public through raffles and maybe first come first serve. I'm pretty sure they were just raffles, and there's very few out in the wild. So if you have the chance to get one and you like what you see and you want a knife with great action, with great looks, that's thin behind the edge, with awesome steel. I mean, so far my favorite steel is CTS XHP, and this steel is very comparable to it so far in my opinion. It gets as sharp as CTS XHP does. And so, you know, if you have the opportunity to get it, you have the funds, and you understand the cons of it, and you're okay with that, then I would definitely recommend you pick it up right now. Alright, so that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more knife reviews like this one. See ya.